Joining us now with more reaction, author of the #1 New York Times bestselling book, Things That Matter, now out in paperback with a brand new section on the Obama years, Charles Krauthammer. Your take on the fall of Ramadi?
Well, you know, people talk about the immediate circumstances, of course, but Ramadi was lost when it was lost on January the 1st, 2012, when Obama decided to pull out entirely. And you showed that clip where he said Iraq is stable, self-reliant, and I think he was right. It was. And when you listen to General Petraeus, who won the war, at the end, he said himself in an interview about a month ago with the Washington Post that we had secured Iraq. It was still a fragile nation, but it was intact, and it had a future, and we had assets on the ground. We didn't have to maintain 100,000 troops, 200,000 troops. We just needed a residual force. And by leaving, we gave up not just the residual force. We gave up our influence over the government. We were the dominant influence in Iraq. We gave up our assets on the ground, our air bases, our control of airspace, and we gave up an unchallenged and unparalleled intelligence network that we had in Anbar.
Charles.
And it's precisely what we had and what we threw away. I wrote a column that's actually in the book. It's called Who Lost Iraq, which I wrote in December of 2011. And it ends by saying the future generations will ask not just, they're not going to ask who lost Iraq. That's known. They're going to ask why.
Charles, every Republican's being asked the question, you know, what you would have done, and now knowing what we know now, 2003, how would you have voted, et cetera. Isn't the question for the Democrats, knowing what you know now about Ramadi and Mosul and Fallujah and earlier Tikrit, would you have pulled out? When is that question going to be asked?
I wouldn't even ask it as a hypothetical. This is not, you know, this is not obscure knowledge that we couldn't have known. I and many others were arguing in December of 2011 that it was very clear that if we pulled out, they would be, the bad guys in the region would come in. You create a vacuum. And what's happened is Iraq is now being disputed between Shiite extremists, jihadists, meaning Iran on the one hand, and on the other hand, Sunni extremists and jihadists.
Unbelievable.
Just yesterday, the defense minister of Iran flew into Baghdad because they are now in charge.
All right, Charles Krauthammer, thank you.